Jack Dorsey, the co-founder of Twitter and the CEO of Block, the company that runs Square and Cash App, announced in late February that he was eliminating 40% of his entire workforce. 40%. Not 5%, not 10%. 40. And in the letter he sent to shareholders explaining why, he wrote 6 words that should have been printed on every newspaper front page in America. He wrote that intelligence tools have changed what it means to build and run a company. That is the CEO of a publicly traded company with a market capitalization of tens of billions of dollars, telling the world that artificial intelligence has made 40% of his human employees unnecessary. Block's stock price rose nearly 14% the next day. Wall Street did not mourn the workers who lost their jobs. Wall Street celebrated the labor cost savings. The company expects hundreds of millions of dollars in restructuring charges in the first quarter alone, and most of the layoffs will be completed by mid-year. And Block is not an outlier. It is a signal. The Challenger, Gray, and Christmas report for March 2026 documented that U.S. employers announced 60,620 job cuts in March alone, a 25% jump from February. And for the first time in the history of the Challenger report, artificial intelligence was cited as the leading cause of job cuts, with 15,341 positions eliminated specifically because AI made them redundant. Not because the economy was weak, not because demand was falling, because a machine learned to do the job for a fraction of the cost. That has never happened before. In every previous wave of American job destruction, from the mechanization of agriculture to the automation of manufacturing to the offshoring of the 2000s, the jobs that were destroyed were primarily blue-collar, manual, and repetitive. This time, the jobs being destroyed are white-collar, cognitive, and professional. The people losing their careers are not factory workers or farmhands. They are software engineers, data scientists, financial analysts, marketing strategists, customer service managers, compliance officers, content creators, and mid-level managers at some of the most prestigious companies in the world. And what makes this different from every previous displacement is the speed, the breadth, and the silence. It is happening faster than any previous technological displacement. It is affecting more occupational categories simultaneously than any previous wave, and it is being conducted quietly, inside corporate restructurings that are framed as quote 1 and quote 2 rather than what they actually are. The beginning of the largest displacement of professional labor in the history of the American economy. And I want to put a number on the scale that most people have not processed. In just the first 3 months of 2026, U.S. employers announced 217,362 planned job cuts, according to Challenger. That is after 2025 delivered nearly 1.2 million planned layoffs, up 54% from the prior year, the highest figure outside of COVID since the Great Recession. These numbers are not coming from a collapsing economy. GDP is growing, revenue is flowing, profits are strong. The companies making these cuts are not going bankrupt. They are thriving. They are cutting workers precisely because the AI allows them to thrive with fewer humans, and the workers being cut are discovering something that the manufacturing workers of the Rust Belt discovered 30 years ago. The company does not owe you a job. The skills you spent decades developing can become obsolete in a single product cycle. And the market that valued your expertise yesterday can decide overnight that your expertise is no longer worth the cost of your salary, your benefits, your office space, and your retirement contribution. The Rust Belt workers had 20 years to adjust as factories slowly closed. The white-collar workers of 2026 are being given 20 days' notice as entire departments are dissolved in a single restructuring memo. 78,000 tech workers were laid off in the first quarter, and half of those cuts were directly attributed to AI. Tom's Hardware reported that 78,557 workers in the tech industry were laid off from January through early April 2026, with more than 76% of those positions located in the United States, and 37,638 of those cuts, 47.9%, were directly attributed to the reduced need for human workers because of AI and workflow automation, nearly half in a single quarter. The companies driving the cuts read like a directory of the American corporate establishment. Amazon eliminated approximately 14,000 corporate roles, citing AI's, quote, 3 potential. Oracle quietly cut more than 10,000 positions, with the savings reportedly allocated to data center funding. Meta is cutting jobs in its Reality Labs division as it pivots toward AI. Dell accounted for a significant portion of the technology sector's 18,720 layoffs in March alone. Intel laid off 24,000 workers, approximately 20% of its entire workforce. UPS announced 48,000 job cuts through automation. Salesforce's CEO said he had been able to cut the company's headcount by 4,000 in 2025 as chatbots took on the tasks previously handled by customer service agents. And eBay announced approximately 800 positions eliminated in its third round of cuts since 2023, targeting managers, researchers, data scientists, and software engineers. The technology sector recorded 52,050 job cuts in Q1 2026, up 40% year over year. And the irony is devastating. The industry that is building the AI tools is also the industry most rapidly shedding the human workers those tools are designed to replace. The companies that told their employees to upskill and adapt and learn prompt engineering are the same companies that are now eliminating the positions those employees upskilled into. A laid-off Block employee told reporters something that captures the entire dynamic in a single sentence. AI is not layoff insurance, they said. Despite all the corporate propaganda about retraining and upskilling and adaptation, when the AI reaches the point where it can perform your job at a fraction of your cost, the corporation does not reassign you. It fires you, and it does so while its stock price rises because Wall Street interprets every human worker eliminated as a cost reduction that flows directly to the bottom line. And the geography of the destruction tells a story that the national headlines miss. Seattle, San Francisco, and Menlo Park together accounted for approximately 27,485 tech layoffs in Q1 2026 alone. Those are the cities where the highest paid, most credentialed, most supposedly future-proof workers in the American economy concentrated their careers and their mortgages and their families. And they are now the cities where the displacement is most intense. The Q1 2026 job cuts in technology were up 40% year over year, and the cuts are not limited to junior roles or redundant positions. eBay's latest round targeted managers, researchers, data scientists, and software engineers, the core technical workforce, the people who built the platforms, the people who were supposed to be irreplaceable. And the replacement is not another person in another country earning less. The replacement is a software system that costs $20 per month, never takes vacation, never files a health insurance claim, never negotiates a raise, and improves its own capabilities every quarter without additional training budget. Eric Woodard, CEO of the career coaching firm Win at Work, told Newsweek that the pace of displacement is unlike anything he has seen in decades of career counseling. The workers coming to him are not entry-level employees with limited experience. They are mid-career professionals with 15 to 20 years of expertise who have been told that their expertise is now embedded in a language model that the company already paid for. The CEOs of the largest companies on Earth are publicly telling you that your job is going to be eliminated and nobody is listening. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei said that AI will wipe out half of entry-level white-collar jobs in the United States. Ford CEO Jim Farley said the same thing. Atlassian CEO Mike Cannon-Brookes said it would be disingenuous to pretend that AI does not change the mix of skills or the number of roles required. Cognizant's chief AI officer Babak Hodgett told Nikkei Asia that it will take another 6 months to a year before companies start seeing real productivity gains from AI and that it will be painful for all. Even Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, the company that created ChatGPT, acknowledged that some of the current layoffs are real displacement caused by AI. These are not fringe analysts making speculative predictions on blogs. These are the people running the companies that are building and deploying the technology. They are telling you on the record in public that the technology they are selling will eliminate a significant portion of the American professional workforce. And Goldman Sachs published research in early 2026 projecting that generative AI could ultimately affect 300 million full-time jobs globally, with roughly two-thirds of current occupations exposed to some degree of AI automation. An MIT simulation showed that AI can replace nearly 12% of the entire U.S. workforce, amounting to approximately $1.2 trillion in lost salaries. McKinsey Global Institute estimates that AI could automate 30% of work activities across the global economy by 2030. A Stanford study found that entry-level coding and customer service jobs are already being affected at measurable rates. And the career coaching firm Win at Work told Newsweek that repetitive cognitive work will continue to be the hardest hit category in 2026. Repetitive cognitive work. That is not assembly line labor. That is accounting. That is paralegal research. That is insurance claims processing. That is financial reporting. That is medical coding. That is administrative coordination. That is the work that millions of Americans with college degrees and professional certifications have built their entire careers performing. And the executives at the companies that employ those workers are publicly, explicitly, and repeatedly telling you that the technology now exists to do that work without them. And the government response to this displacement has been, in the words of the Rational FX analyst tracking the layoff data, notably absent. No major economy has introduced legislation specifically addressing AI-driven job losses in 2026. Not one bill, not one hearing, not one regulatory framework, nothing. The white-collar recession is not coming in the future. It is already here, and the data proves it. Economist Claudia Sahm, the inventor of the Sahm Rule recession indicator that is used by every major central bank and financial institution on Earth to identify the onset of recessions, warned that 2026 could be the year that AI displacement, federal government layoffs driven by DOGE, and broader economic uncertainty converge to produce what she describes as a white-collar recession. Not a recession for the entire economy, a recession concentrated among the professional and managerial class. The people with degrees. The people with credentials. The people who were told their entire lives that education was the path to economic security. Sahm's analysis, as reported by Business Insider, describes a labor market where the tasks that once required teams of analysts, copywriters, junior lawyers, and mid-tier software developers are increasingly being handled by AI systems at a fraction of the cost. Companies are not announcing these shifts as AI layoffs. They are framing them as restructurings, efficiency drives, and strategic realignments. But the net effect is the same. Fewer jobs, fewer openings, fewer paths back in once you are pushed out. And the DOGE initiative compounded the problem by gutting the federal workforce. In 2025, government layoff announcements hit 279,445 year-to-date according to Challenger data, driven almost entirely by DOGE-related cuts across federal agencies. Those were not just bureaucratic positions. They were scientists at the NIH, engineers at NASA, researchers at the CDC, economists at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, federal employees with decades of specialized expertise who cannot simply transfer their skills to the private sector because the private sector is simultaneously eliminating the professional positions they would have applied for. And Fortune magazine described the week in late February 2026 when the Citrini research report went viral as __11__. The report modeled a scenario in which AI displacement strips high-paying salaries from prime borrowers, causing mortgage defaults, tanking the $13 trillion residential mortgage market, spiking unemployment above 10%, and sending the stock market down 38% in a deflationary spiral. The Dow fell over 800 points on the Monday after the report was published. Citadel Securities published a rebuttal arguing the thesis was unsound, but the market reaction proved that the fear is real, even if the timeline is debated. And a woman named James, a professional in the entertainment industry displaced by what she believes is AI and automation, told Fortune that she is now working retail to make ends meet. And she said something that will stay with me. She said, quote, 12, that is the human face of the white-collar recession. A professional, a credentialed, experienced, career-building American who did everything right. Working retail, wearing a name tag, falling off a cliff in the dark. And she is not alone. Millions of Americans are experiencing what economists call a personal recession, an individual-level economic contraction that occurs while the aggregate statistics claim the economy is growing. The phrase __13__ has emerged to describe the phenomenon where the economy produces more output with fewer workers, meaning GDP rises while the number of Americans participating in the prosperity shrinks. The productivity gains from AI flow to capital, not to labor. The stock market goes up. The workers go down, and the GDP number, designed to measure national prosperity, instead measures the prosperity of the shrinking fraction that owns the machines, the software, and the shares. The research firm Unicus forecast high unemployment and stubborn inflation into the second half of 2026, predicting that companies will lean as much as they can, as fast as they can with AI. They predicted a, quote, 1.4 that will keep widening. The GDP numbers will say the economy is growing. The employment numbers, propped up by healthcare hiring, will say the labor market is holding, and millions of displaced professionals will experience a personal recession that the official data refuses to acknowledge because the data was not designed to capture a displacement this targeted, this rapid, and this concentrated in a single class of worker. 2025 was one of the worst years for job cuts outside a declared recession, and 2026 is accelerating the pattern. Challenger, Gray, and Christmas reported that 2025's total planned job cuts reached nearly 1.2 million, up 54% compared to the prior year, and the highest figure outside of COVID since the Great Recession. Nearly 1.2 million planned layoffs. In a year when the unemployment rate was 4.3% and the economy was technically expanding. That combination, high layoffs during a statistical expansion, is the signature of a structural shift rather than a cyclical downturn. In a cyclical downturn, layoffs rise because demand falls. In a structural shift, layoffs rise because the labor itself is being permanently replaced by a cheaper alternative. The demand is still there. The customers are still buying, the revenue is still flowing, but the workers are not needed because the technology does the work now. And the employers who are cutting are not struggling companies making desperate choices. They are profitable companies making strategic choices to permanently reduce their labor costs by replacing human workers with AI systems that do not require salaries, health insurance, 401k matching, office space, management, training, or vacation. The math is simple and brutal. A mid-level software engineer at a tech company costs approximately $200,000 per year in total compensation. An AI coding assistant costs approximately $20 per month per seat. Even if the AI only replaces 50% of that engineer's output, the employer can reassign the remaining work to a smaller team and eliminate the position entirely. Multiply that by thousands of engineers across hundreds of companies, and the aggregate displacement is measured in the billions of dollars of labor cost removed from the economy. And those billions do not disappear. They transform into corporate profit, which flows to shareholders, which concentrates among the wealthiest Americans who hold the majority of corporate equity. The displacement is a wealth transfer. From workers to shareholders, from paychecks to dividends, from the middle class to the ownership class. And it is happening at a pace that the American labor market, the American political system, and the American social contract were not designed to absorb. Consider what the math looks like at scale. If Goldman Sachs is correct that 300 million jobs globally are exposed to AI automation, and if even 10% of those jobs are eliminated rather than augmented over the next 5 years, that is 30 million jobs. In the United States alone, if 12% of the workforce is replaceable, as the MIT simulation suggests, that is approximately 20 million positions representing $1.2 trillion in annual salary. Those salaries fund mortgages, they fund car payments, they fund health insurance premiums, they fund retirement contributions, they fund the consumer spending that constitutes 70% of GDP. And when the salaries disappear, the spending disappears, the tax revenue disappears, and the economic multiplier effect that every dollar of income generates in the communities where those workers live and spend also disappears. The Bureau of Labor Statistics was not designed to track this kind of displacement because historically, technological displacement happened slowly enough that the labor force could retrain and redeploy within a single economic cycle. The current wave is different because the technology improves faster than workers can retrain. By the time a displaced financial analyst completes a certificate program in AI prompt engineering, the AI has advanced to the point where it no longer needs a human prompt engineer either. The retraining treadmill moves faster than the worker can run. The low-hire, low-fire equilibrium is a polite name for an economy that has stopped creating careers. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell described the labor market as a low-hire, low-fire environment. Stanford used the same phrase. The description is accurate, and it is catastrophic if you understand what it actually means for ordinary Americans trying to build a career, earn a promotion, or find a new job after being displaced. Low-fire means employers are not conducting mass layoffs in waves that would trigger alarm in the unemployment data. The monthly job loss numbers remain at levels that economists describe as historically manageable. But low hire means the jobs that do open are being filled at a dramatically slower pace, and in many cases not being filled at all because the employer decided that a combination of AI tools and a leaner remaining team can handle the workload. The result is that the official unemployment rate stays at 4.3%, which is low by historical standards, while the lived experience of anyone trying to find a new professional job is dramatically worse than the 4.3% suggests. Job openings have fallen. Time to hire has lengthened. Salary offers for new positions have compressed. Benefits packages have thinned. And the competition for every remaining opening has intensified because the pool of displaced professionals is growing while the number of openings is shrinking. For workers over 50, the low-hire environment is particularly devastating because the combination of age discrimination, salary expectations, and the perception that older workers are less adaptable to AI tools creates a triple barrier that few employers will acknowledge and no resume can overcome. AARP found that 67% of workers over 50 say finding a new job would be difficult. Workers over 55 who lose their jobs take an average of 50% longer to find new employment than younger workers, and the jobs they find typically pay 20 to 25% less than the ones they lost. In a low-hire economy, those statistics become even worse because the already reduced flow of new openings is disproportionately concentrated in healthcare, which is the single sector that is still creating net new jobs. If you are a 55-year-old financial analyst, a displaced marketing director, a laid-off IT manager, the low-hire economy does not offer you a healthcare job. It offers you nothing. Or it offers you a part-time, contract-based, benefit-free gig that replaces $85,000 in salary with $17 per hour in survival. And the phrase, low hire, low fire, makes that reality sound like equilibrium. It is not equilibrium. It is a slow-motion hollowing of the American professional class that the labor statistics are structurally unable to capture because they were designed for an economy where job loss meant layoffs and recovery meant hiring. In the AI economy, job loss means elimination, and recovery means the job never comes back. The next wave is coming for healthcare, legal, finance, and education, and it will be bigger than the tech wave. The technology sector is the canary in the coal mine, not the coal mine itself. Tech companies adopted AI first because they built it. But the same AI systems replacing software engineers and data analysts at tech companies are now being deployed across every industry. Healthcare systems are deploying AI for medical coding, radiology screening, claims processing, and scheduling. Legal firms are using AI for document review, contract analysis, and brief drafting. Financial institutions are automating trading, compliance, fraud detection, and loan underwriting. Insurance companies are using AI for claims adjudication and risk assessment. Accounting firms are automating audit procedures and tax preparation. The Challenger report documented 5,356 job cuts in pharmaceuticals, 5,258 in education, and 5,114 in financial services in March 2026 alone. A radiologist who spent 13 years in medical school and residency training is now augmented by AI that reads MRI scans in seconds with accuracy that matches or exceeds human performance. The hospital that employed 4 radiologists discovers it only needs 2, and the 2 released find every other hospital made the same calculation. Junior law associates who once spent years doing document review are being replaced by AI tools that do the work in minutes. The firms are not hiring fewer lawyers because business is bad. Business is fine. They are hiring fewer because AI reduced the labor requirement per case, and the associates not hired carry $200,000 in law school debt into a profession that no longer has enough positions. Every industry that relies on cognitive labor is on the same trajectory. The only variable is timing. Technology is 12 to 18 months ahead. Finance, legal, and healthcare are in early deployment. The destination is the same for all of them. There is no historical precedent because every previous displacement moved workers up. This one moves them down. When agriculture was mechanized, displaced farm workers moved to factories. When factories were automated, workers moved to offices. When offices were offshored, workers were told to retrain into technology. Each wave moved workers along a complexity gradient from less complex to more complex work, from physical labor to cognitive labor, from repetitive tasks to creative tasks. The implicit promise was that if you kept climbing, kept educating yourself, kept moving toward more complex, more human work, you would reach a level where the machines could not follow. AI broke that promise. For the first time in the history of technological displacement, the technology is coming for the middle and the top simultaneously. Large language models write legal briefs, compose marketing copy, analyze financial data, generate code, summarize research, draft medical documentation, and produce strategic recommendations at levels indistinguishable from experienced professionals. The complexity gradient that protected workers for 200 years has been flattened. There is no next rung on the ladder. The ladder has been removed, and the workers standing on it are falling not into better jobs, not into equivalent jobs, but into worse jobs. Into retail, into gig work, into contract positions with no benefits, into the kind of work that pays $17 per hour and requires a name tag. Not because they lack education, not because they lack ambition, because the economic system they spent 20 years preparing for was redesigned in 24 months by a technology that none of them were consulted about. And the company that told them their job was safe is the company that replaced them. And the politician who told them to learn to code is watching silently as coding itself becomes automated. And the university that charged them $200,000 for a degree is still enrolling the next class into programs training students for jobs that may not exist by the time they graduate. That is the displacement. That is the direction. And that is why what is about to happen to American workers has never happened before. Because there has never been a technology that eliminated the need for human cognition across every industry simultaneously while offering the displaced workers nowhere to go but down. And the question that nobody in Washington, nobody on Wall Street, nobody in the corporate boardrooms where these decisions are being made is willing to answer is what happens to a consumer economy when the consumers cannot consume. The American economy is 70% consumer spending. When you eliminate the jobs of the people who do the spending, you do not just reduce their income. You reduce the revenue of every business they would have spent that income at. The restaurants they ate at, the retailers they shopped at, the contractors they hired, the vacations they booked, the cars they bought, the homes they upgraded, the investments they made. Every dollar of eliminated salary cascades through the local and national economy as reduced demand. And reduced demand eventually comes back to the same corporations that eliminated the jobs in the first place, as lower revenue, as missed earnings, as declining growth. The AI cost savings that Wall Street celebrates in the first quarter become the demand destruction that Wall Street punishes in the fourth quarter. And the workers who are eliminated cannot be rehired quickly because they have moved to different cities, taken different jobs, left the workforce entirely, or spent their savings in accumulated debt during the months of unemployment that the AI transition created. The reconstitution of a displaced professional workforce is not a switch that can be flipped. It is a process that takes years, and in those years, the economy that eliminated those workers will discover that the cost of not having consumers is higher than the cost of employing them. But the discovery will come too late for the workers who lost their homes, their health insurance, their retirement timelines, and their professional identities in the intervening period. The damage is irreversible on a human timeline, even if the economic correction eventually acknowledges the mistake. Share this video with every American who works for a living, because the displacement that is happening right now in technology and finance and professional services will reach every industry, every occupation, and every salary level within the next 24 to 36 months. And the workers who understand what is coming and position themselves accordingly will navigate it. The workers who are told by their employers that they are safe will discover what the Block employees discovered, that the company that told them to upskill was the company that replaced them anyway. And the machines that replace them do not eat at restaurants, they do not buy homes, they do not enroll children in school, they do not pay property taxes, they do not contribute to Social Security, they do not tip, they do not donate to charity, they do not vote. They produce output, but they do not produce demand. And an economy without demand is an economy without a future, no matter how impressive the productivity numbers look on the quarterly earnings call.